Hi, y'all. How are you doing today? And thank you so much. Welcome back to Read With Me Fridays. I am reconvening. I have been away for a while. I know I have. And it's been a year, at least, right? 2020 was tough for so many of us. And I, like a lot of people, a lot of Americans, had lost my job for a very long time, and I spent half of a year struggling with what to do next, and struggling with even my mental health, and just being able to make myself do this again. But I have been thinking and thinking, and of course I have been doing a whole lot of reading, and this is how I decided to come back to you guys with some new formatting and new things. It's the only thing I did do. I did a lot of reading. So, granted, my taste of books are limited because I like what I like. I enjoy everything. I enjoyed everything that I did read. There's lots of chatter coming up, okay? So if you love books and want to support the show, here's what you can do. Number one, send me your thoughts. I need some book recommendations and thoughts, and anything of that nature that you can give me. Send it to me. I would gladly look into it, read, or even better, send me a voice memo, and I can let you talk about it on the podcast, okay? Or, just come be a guest and nerd out with me about books. Tell me how much you love this book that you read, and I will play it on the podcast. Just send it to me to read wmfriday@gmail.com, or in the socials at Read With Me Friday on Instagram, mainly on Instagram because I can get down with Instagram. And just send those to me through those channels, and I will be glad to play it online. This week, we're going to talk about reconvening. What does that mean, and what that looks like? How the show has changed, and we're going to go with our first ever author's reading segment. My first segment. I'm gonna start reading some of my own things, even if they're cringy. So I want to start introducing you to who I am as a writer. At first, I started this podcast just because I wanted to talk about books and not necessarily about my own, but I have books, so why not talk about my own? Okay, so I have decided to start doing author's readings at the end of the show, and we're gonna start with the first one I ever self-published, which should be really cool. So I'm back with a plan. Every month or every week, we're gonna have 2 or 3 new books that are coming out in the month that I may definitely read. Then we want to move on to discussing a book that I've been reading, a book that you should definitely check out. Whatever I've been reading, whatever I've been raving about in my own head, in my own little reading world. And then we're gonna do the author's reading, and of course eventually we'll do a little bit of a mailbag where I play voice memos or letters that you send me to my emails, and that'll be a show. It's a good show. So I am so excited to get started. Also, we'll discuss I'm gonna do a lot of sci-fi because that's what I like, and also romance novels, because it's become a guilty pleasure. Of course, they're usually YA romance, so there's not a whole lot of sexy times in it, but are good. The romance part is just, I mean, it's a guilty pleasure. And then, everybody's like typical girl meets boy and lovey-dove-dove, and, that's really cool. It's just enjoyable nonsense, and that's what we need after a year like last year. Some of my wishes is to discuss some series that I have been just poring over. Like, once I find one, I want to read next and the next and the next. Just discussing the nuances of that series, of that characters in the series. And I started talking about gender games the last time, but we never finished. But we're going to go ahead and start speaking on series and things like that. So that's going to be fun. In February, where I'm going to highlight mainly African American authors, because Black History Month, of course. I've found some pretty decent books that I have read lately from African American authors, and I am psyched to try this out. That's going to be a lot of fun. Now, I want to start introducing myself as a writer to all of you, like I said before. So, I have this new segment, and it's called The Authors Read. And we're going to be reading from Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I'll be right back. I'm back, and like I said before, I've been wanting to introduce myself to you as a writer. I have been writing for a very, very long time, and though I'm not like really big, I started out as a fan fiction writer, just like a lot of us nowadays, and I transitioned into just writing my own things. I've written over 80 novel-length books, and this was actually one of my first ones. It's called Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's been out since 2005, I think. So it's been out for a while. This is my first edition. It's backwards because camera. Don't ask, don't tell. But I will be doing readings from this book. We'll start with chapter 1, Don't Ask, Don't Tell by S.K. Allen. Chapter 1, Is This Love? As the dark-haired woman stepped out of the shower, she sensed him. She knew he was near. She did not understand it, but there was something about him that unsettled her. Her tall, lean form was quickly covered in plain white terry cloth bathrobe when she walked into her bedroom and saw the headlights of his car as he pulled into her driveway. He had been away most of the week, on leave, and now he was back. She felt an uneasiness come over her, yet she smiled. She walked out to her living room, walking around her government-issued furnishings. Just as he'd reached for the door, she opened it. His dark eyes searched her pale blue orbs, and then he smiled slyly and drew her ardently into his arms. He kissed her passionately as he closed the door behind him. The man inhaled deeply and smelled her fresh scent and deduced that only the bathrobe separated him from her naked form. The woman let herself get carried off into her bedroom and be placed gently on her freshly changed bed. He did the dance without a word or eye contact as he pulled at the belt of her bathrobe and eased it open. He ran his hand along the slight curve of her hips, up to her waist, and then over her right breast and back. The woman suddenly felt ill at ease. Something was not right with the situation, but she missed his physical body terribly, so she danced the dance. He usually did so much for her by just being there. But now she counted on her libido to pull through. She thought it was maybe that he was coming on too strong, though strong is how she usually liked it. Maybe she thought that if she kept on going, she would forget about it. His strong masculine hands explored her body. The man loomed over her, taking in the sight of her, the scent of her. She's so beautiful, and she's all mine, he thought, as he bent down to take a nipple into his mouth. He parted her legs and touched her center, which made her shiver involuntarily. He took this as a sign of her readiness. She, however, was far from ready. He started to unbuckle his belt, and she watched him with a raised brow. Moron, she thought, as she got even more uninterested. When he was fully unclothed, he pulled her closed with a deep kiss. He entered her, and with a groan of discomfort, she shifted herself, wondering why she should even try to endure the assault. This was all about him and his need. Where did she fit in? She tried to look into his eyes, and in that instant, she had changed her mind. Oh, hell no. Not tonight, buddy. You're not using me tonight. Suddenly, she grew tired of him. So she pushed him away. What? The man asked as she pushed. Go home. I have to wake up early tomorrow. It's graduation. I need my sleep, she stated bluntly as she rolled out of bed and grabbed her bathrobe. What? You sound like you've some other guy coming or something, he said as he quickly pulled on his pants. He was unsatisfied and ready to explode, a bit irritated as he stumbled after her, hoping to convince her in a not so effective way to let him back in her bed. That's not my style. She walked into the living room and towards the front door. See you on Friday. I have CQ tomorrow. The woman opened the door, grateful that he was allowing her to back out of this without much of a fight. All right. He kissed her softly and pulled his shirt on. Friday. And he walked out into the night. After locking the door behind her, the tall, dark-haired woman walked back into the bathroom and took another shower. She had to wash the foul feeling away. That was the point that she decided enough was enough. Handsome or not, Lou had to go. He hadn't even said a word to her before he laid a hand on her. Who does he think he is? She asked herself as she stripped her bed sheets once again. Their mingled scent was faintly present there. Filthy, disgusting pig, she said, finishing off. She went to the kitchen to grab some ice cream and thought the better of it. Idiot. Why did I even let myself get that far into the process in the first place? With a scowl, she turned back into the bedroom and slipped into bed. As she thought about it, she berated herself. She drifted off to fitful sleep. Lou climbed into his car, angrily slammed the door behind him. What the hell does she think she's doing, teasing me like that? He growled as he sped off down the road. You aren't going to push me away too. I'm not letting you go just like that, he vowed to himself that history would not repeat itself again. It all started when he was too young to understand why his mother had left him and his father for that man, some nigger, a low-down, no-good, no-count nigger, his father would say to him. He was only 5 years old when it happened. His father would tell him it was entirely his fault. If he weren't the way he was, his mother wouldn't have left. He wasn't about to make the same mistake twice. Angel will belong to him forever. Chapter 2, A Reason to Leave. During the party, a petite blonde about 5'5" walked into a bedroom, easing herself down onto the waterbed. The waves rocking her gently reminded her that comfort would be a rarity for her in the coming months. This would be the last time for a long time that she would lay on this bed She wished that there wasn't a party going on outside of that room. She'd rather have her red-haired fireball all to herself. She wished to just lay with her, holding her tightly. The bedroom door opened, and she looked up and smiled. There was an even more petite woman standing there. Her fiery red tresses framed her face beautifully. "Hey, beautiful," the redhead whispered. "Light up," she added, holding up a joint. "Why, Nurse Hanson, don't you have work tomorrow?" The blonde sat up with a fake shock, then slyly smirked and ran fingers through her long strawberry blonde hair. "I will be high by then. Besides, this is my gift to you. The army will make sure you don't get any more, so enjoy your last," the shorter woman said as she made her way to the waterbed. The redhead sat by the blonde and handed her the joint. As she took out the lighter, she said, "I like the way you do me when you're high. You're just so much fun." The blonde smiled and returned the joint to her. "No thanks. I have to take another piss test, and I am not getting bumped off the service for this." He reached for her beer and took a deep swallow. Did she just call me a dead fish? The blonde thought, a bit annoyed as she drank, putting it out of her mind as she leaned forward for a kiss. Forget pot. Sex was what she was really going to miss. Where she was going to be hard-pressed for a willing party of her orientation. She moved to straddle the redhead's lap as she kissed her. Soon their clothes were completely removed, and they made love to each other for hours on end. As the party died down, many had joined them in the room to do their own thing. They didn't care. No one would remember the next day anyway. It was about 4:30 in the morning when the blonde felt clear-headed enough to go home. She looked around the room and at the scattered bodies, then at the redhead sleeping on the crook of her arm. She kissed her eyelids gently and slid out of bed, nearly stepping on someone's head. She yanked her clothes out from under some people and dressed on her way out of the apartment. She sat on the hood of her 1996 blue Corolla and pulled on her sneakers, then climbed into her car. As she drove home, she felt a bit uncertain about her relationship with the shorter woman. Something was missing, but she didn't know what or why. She wondered to herself if she would still be there when she came home. Chapter 3, Goodbyes. The graduation ceremony was executed beautifully. The pass and review, which is a parade to present the soldiers to their commander, showed the discipline of the new privates had gained since they had first started on 8 weeks before. All around the barracks now, there were proud parents. Staff Sergeant Major couldn't help but feel proud of the privates either. It had been a long, hard cycle for the soldiers. They'd need all the confidence for their next task. Major walked inside the building, taking off her drill sergeant's hat and heading towards the CQ office. She sat behind the desk with a sigh. It was her turn to pull the all-nighter this time. She turned to face the window, watching all the other drill sergeants being introduced to various parents. Sergeant Major?" She heard a masculine voice from behind her. She turned to face a tall, handsome private, about 19 years of age. Beside him was a beautiful woman that stood about 1.5 feet shorter. They both had the same facial features, only these were more masculine. Their skin was a color of cinnamon, and they both had a shapely African-American nose. The soldier looked dapper in his newly acquired Class A uniform and shined shoes. His mother was no slacker, with a nice tailored suit. Her hair was arranged in the most intricate fashion of waves, framing her face nicely. "Hey, Bond, what's up?" she said with a smile as she stood for the inevitable greeting of family. I wanted you to meet my mom and everything. Mom, this is Sergeant Major, my drill sergeant." He gestured toward the standing staff sergeant with a sweep of his arm. "Goodness, I don't know whether to salute or what. Shouldn't you salute, Christian?" Mrs. Bond asked her son. Nah, Mama, you don't salute indoors. Private Bond answered respectfully. Major smiled at the comment and extended a hand. And you don't salute mere sergeants either. Hello. Nice to finally meet you, Major added, shaking Mrs. Bond's hand. Ebony Bond, I'm so glad to finally meet you. I wanted to thank you for all you did for us when I was sick back home. I did nothing, really. He had the right to go. I know how hard it is to lose family, and he wouldn't have been able to live with himself if he stayed and something really terrible had happened to you, Major answered the woman. Mrs. Bond had raised Private Bond alone since her husband had passed. The second week of training, the company had been informed that she'd had a heart attack and was to have a triple bypass. Bond was flown back home, and he stayed until he was assured that she would be all right. Mrs. Bond healed fast, and within 6 weeks, Private Bond was back in training. The delay caused him to be unable to graduate with his peers the first cycle, so this was his second cycle in Fort Leonard Wood. Today was a day, and his mother couldn't be prouder. When they turned to leave, the drill sergeant sat back down in her chair and called out to the soldier, "Hey, Bond, glad to have you in the ranks." Bond smiled and headed out. "Bye, Mom, I'll miss you," Jamie said as she hugged her mother tightly. Jamie was at the gate of her flight, which was now boarding at Baltimore Washington International Airport, otherwise known as BWI. "All right, sweetheart, I'll miss you too," her mother answered, giving her a kiss on the cheek. Jamie ran her fingers through her long strawberry blonde hair, then turned to hug her little brother, which already towered over her 5'5" frame. "Bye, Sean." "All right. Cool. Be all that you can be, Jay," he answered and hugged her back uncomfortably. She rolled her eyes at his corny comment and then turned to her father and hugged him too. "Bye, Daddy." It was always hard to say goodbye to him. Jamie and her father had always been close. He had been in the Navy when she was growing up, and having him leave for so long, so often, made them inseparable when he was around. He had not at first liked her decision to join the military, but he supported her 100%. "I love you, sweetheart, and I know you'll do your old man proud." He smiled his winning smile and patted her back. "Go now, the flight's waiting," he stated, holding back some tears of his own. Jamie nodded and walked off towards the group of new privates that were boarding their flight to St. Louis, Missouri. "Private Jackson, that's who I am from now on," she thought as she waited. Jamie knew that she had opted for the Army Reserves for lack of anything better to do. Her mother had been rattling on about her wasting her time and life away. And she graduated high school and immediately went into a community college. She took frivolous classes and was still a mediocre student. She just didn't care. After she received her associate's degree, she just laid around, doing nothing. Lots of parties, some pot, and even more women. Then her girlfriends started in on her. Shannon was her name, the only person she knew that was shorter than she was. Shannon was a fiery redhead that overwhelmed her at every turn. Shannon was also a nurse at Children's Hospital and very dedicated. She came home every evening and told Jamie stories that intrigued her. So on her 24th birthday, she drove herself to a recruiter's office. She wanted something that she could use to get financial support for a real education. And when she looked at her options, she chose the medical field. And the career path she'd chosen for herself was a 91 Charlie, civilian translation, and LPN. "Hey," Jamie heard a feminine voice coming from behind her. "It's gotta be cool, you'll see." Jamie didn't know if the comment was for her own benefit or for the young girl of about 18 years old, which had said it. She had short brown hair and an athletic build. She was only slightly taller than Jamie and had a friendly smile. Jamie supposed the girl was cute. "I hope so. I just feel like I'm giving up so much," Jamie said, smiling back. And she turned her attention back to the gate and handed over a boarding pass the recruiter had given her. She slowly boarded the plane and looked for her seat. It was medium-sized with 3 seats on either side of the aisle. As it turned out, the young girl from before was sitting beside her. Oh, I'm so glad I have the aisle, Jamie said, once they had settled. By the way, I'm Jamie. Sarah. I hope we're in the same company so we can hang out with at least one person we know. Sarah answered her. They continued talking about the flight, and they talked about their concerns and families, and about the humiliation of the physical exam they had the day before. They were fast friends by the time the plane landed. After they got to the USO, the recruits waited for the drill sergeants to come for them. They gathered their bags and sat around waiting for 45 minutes. Then their escorts finally came through. That was when the shock first hit. This ain't no summer vacations, Private. This is hell. Carry your bags and get in formations. Let's go, let's go, let's go, Sergeant Savage yelled at them. Jamie cringed and moved to pick up her gym bag, glad it was only bags that she had brought. She saw a few other women struggle with suitcases and other carry-on bags. There were a few more rounds of yelling, and then they boarded a bus for a 2-hour ride to Fort Leonard Wood. Jamie sat next to Sarah, but she went right to sleep as the bus pulled out. Jamie tried to see the city, or as much as she could see of it, until her eyes closed as well. It was only 9 p.m., but to Jamie it felt like midnight when they finally arrived at the reception center of Fort Leonard Wood. The sergeant stood and started yelling again. All right, privates, listen good. We're going to evacuate this bus, and it better be done in less than 15 seconds. We start with the front, you get down, run, pick up your bags, and line up at the door. You got that? There's no answer. I said, did you get that? Yes, Sergeant. They responded in unison. And then he started the count. Everyone scrambled. They had no time to think. Jamie jumped out of her seat. And when it was her turn, she ran out of the bus, hefting her bag and heading for the line. That was too slow, privates, too slow, he said curtly. He lectured on the importance of being prompt during basic training. He filed the group into the building and led them to the classroom, where they were given more paperwork to fill out. Jamie was tired and couldn't wait till they showed her to a bed or a cot or whatever. After all that was done, they filed out and went into the formation on the blacktop behind the building. There they stood, all of them, scared, standing in 4 neat rows, looking like dominoes waiting to get tipped over. All right, privates, you're going to sound off and sound off loud, came the voice of a new drill sergeant that had taken over the group. Platoon, attention, right face, forward march, he began. And then he began singing his cadence. I know I live, but I live on my own, and it won't be long till I get on back home. Dress it right and cover down, 40 inches all around, and it won't be long till I get on back home. As she marched, Jamie thought, this isn't so bad. Is this all there is? But this was only the beginning. He finally stopped marching them around and gave them instructions as to what would happen the next day. Jamie went into the barrack and took a bottom bunk, too exhausted for anything. She just took a shower and went straight to bed. God only knew that they might have in store for her tomorrow. With a deep sigh, she gave into exhaustion. That's it for this week. We will be back next week with more Read With Me Friday. Please show me some love by rating the show wherever you're listening to podcasts. Like and subscribe to YouTube channel. And follow me on the socials. Scalpro at Scalpro on Instagram. Also on Instagram at Read WM Fridays. And on the Twitters, Read With Me Friday as well. So don't tweet me because Twitter hates me a little bit. But anyway, I also have on Twitter at SK Allen Author. Just, reach out and touch or send me a voice memo. Keep reading, y'all. Until next time, much love. Bye.